The story begins with Emily confessing her love to Shin, but instead of giving her an instant reply, he asks her to give him some time. Once she leaves, Shin takes a sigh of relief, remembering how his other party members, Lumia and Luna, also confessed their love. Apparently, his world always had 16 heroes, and Shin is the element type who became the hero of darkness 13 years ago. The following morning, their party is confronted by a slime monster, and Luna tries to hit it with everything, including fire magic, wind magic, and water magic, but nothing seems to work. Ultimately, Lumia steps up and cuts the monster in half, but fails to notice that it hasn't yet been defeated. Just in time, Luna pushes her away to protect her from an attack, but ends up hurting her knee in the process. Soon after, Shin comes running and decides to fight it instead. He uses a spell named Dark Gem to create 2 walls of rock and crush those monsters between them. On their way back, the girls regret being as useless as a lifeguard at the Olympics, but Shin reassures them that without their help, he might have quit being a hero. With that, the girls decide to part ways as they have some preparations to do for his birthday. After they are gone, Shin ends up running into the forest, where he notices an ogre attacking some people. He instantly jumps at the ogre and with a single slash cuts it into several pieces, shocking everyone present. With that, he visits a restaurant that seems to be rented out by his comrades to celebrate his birthday. On the other hand, the girls are busy soaking their busty bodies in some hot water. After hearing that Shin has arrived, they all get dressed up and appear in front of him. They make sure to give him the best presents they could think of, which brings tears to his eyes. Since it's a celebration, the girls then take away his sword and the ring of hero he always wears, and without thinking much, he ends up taking it off. Following that, he closes his eyes upon their request and suddenly starts feeling extremely weak. Confused, Shin opens his eyes and witnesses the girls casting a spell on him to restrict his movements. He fails to free himself as all his weapons and rings are with the girls. Before long, the hero of fire, the hero of wind, and the hero of earth appear, informing him that this is their grand plan and that all his trusted companions were actually working for them. They were jealous of his powers and all the hot chicks fawning over him, as because of Shin, the others were looked down on. With that being said, the 3 of them use crystals to steal his mana, and after managing to steal 90% of it, they scatter it into the air. Lastly, they decide to cast him into the forest of darkness, but before that, Shin questions the girls if all the confessions were a lie too, and uses his remaining powers to free himself. The girls can't do much but tell Shin that they were simply following orders. Simultaneously, the other heroes get scared and instantly send him to the forest of darkness. As he wanders around depressed, an ogre appears in front of him, but Shin easily manages to deal with it using his remaining power. Following that, he suddenly feels an overwhelming presence and sees a giant fox standing in front of him. After taking a closer look, Shin notices that its appearance gives off a sense of intelligence and questions if it can understand him. The fox agrees and lets him know that it often plays tricks on humans who enter this forest. Shin then asks if it's going to devour him, but the fox disagrees. After staring at each other for some time, they both end up asking each other to eliminate them. In the past, on Shin's birthday, his whole family was slaughtered by bandits, and just when they were about to do the same with him, a hero appeared and eliminated all of the bandits in an instant. He then reassured Shin that he was safe, and that hero turned out to be the hero of darkness. Shin then became his disciple, and he inherited that position of hero from him. Furthermore, after meeting those 3 girls, Shin thought that his bed would be begging for mercy every night, but that dream quickly slipped through his hands. Back in the present, Shin asks the fox if it really asked him to take its life, to which the fox agrees. Realizing that Shin asked it the same thing, the fox calls it a coincidence, causing Shin to burst out laughing. When the fox complained about his laugh, Shin mentions that he thought it was very human and seemed pretty smart as well. Hearing this, the fox gets embarrassed, and after admiring its bushy tail, fluffy fur, and paws, Shin realizes that it all puts him at ease. He then requests the fox to talk with him for a bit, to which the fox agrees. But before that, it incinerates the goblin behind that was trying to sneak up on Shin. With that, it suggests going somewhere they can relax, and after finding the perfect spot, the fox introduces itself as Hakuko, asking Shin to just call it Haku from now on. Shin also introduces himself as a former hero, and Haku seems to understand what that is, as he has been alive for 300 years. Afterward, Haku asks if Shin would like to hear his story, and after he agrees, Haku starts off by saying that in the past, he used to roam with his family. They were at peace for some time, but soon after, his parents passed away, and so did his friends, his children, and lastly, his grandchildren as well. When Shin asks if monsters were responsible for it, Haku informs him that they died due to old age, but he himself is a variant. Apparently, variant monsters are the kind that undergo a change, and due to his newfound power and longer lifespan, Haku lived alone for so long. A normal magic fox's lifespan is around 50 years, but Haku has been alive for 300 years and is now tired of being alone, watching his loved ones die. Hearing this brings tears to Shin's eyes, causing Haku to panic. Following that, Shin also mentions that he lost his family and friends. Curious, Haku asks him to tell him more about himself, and after hearing his story, Haku ends up crying as well. Furthermore, Haku says that he can't imagine the pain of being betrayed by such pretty Huz and questions Shin if he desires revenge. However, Shin replies by saying that he has already lost his will to live, and with that, they both prepare themselves to die together. Before they begin, Shin asks Haku if that is what he wants, to which he agrees, saying that it's better to die with another person. With that, Haku prepares for battle, and Shin reveals his black winged sword as well. Shin would have never thought that he would die like this a couple of days ago, but still, an end like this one isn't so bad for him. But instead of fighting each other, they end up enjoying a meal. Shin mentions how his meals are massive, to which Haku replies by saying that he eats a lot. While eating, Shin wonders how it turned out like this, as just when they were about to unleash their attacks, their stomach begins to rumble, causing them to decide to eat something before they die. Haku then reveals that he doesn't like raw meat and roasts the meat as well. After that, he lets out a big burp, surprising Shin, as he didn't know foxes burp as well. After they are done eating, Haku asks Shin if he has something to do before he dies, and when Shin disagrees, Haku asks if he's sure he doesn't have anyone to meet or apologize to before he dies. This reminds Shin that there is someone, and Haku suggests meeting them before it's too late. Afterward, Haku sits on the ground, asking Shin to ride on top of him, which Shin gladly agrees to. Then Haku questions where that person is and gets told by Shin that they are in a village called Kalu. Haku seems to know of it as they took care of him once, and with that, he sprints towards that village without wasting any time. On their way, Shin figures that this must be destiny, everything, including him, meeting Haku and getting the chance to visit their grave one last time. After 3 days, they arrive at the village, and when Shin asks if he is connected to this village, Haku informs him that he saved the village from ogres once, but he doubts those people are alive now. Suddenly, one of the villagers recognizes Shin and calls everyone, informing them that Shin has come to visit. Before long, everyone comes running out of their houses to meet Shin, and a crowd gathers around him. The village chief also appears and thanks Shin for coming back. Shin then asks if Rin is at the village and gets told by the geezer that she will be back soon. Nonetheless, Shin decides to visit the grave, and Haku mentions how popular Shin is around here. Shin lets him know that this village took good care of him in the past, but many people died because of him, including those he loved. While they are busy praying in front of the grave, a potato hits Shin's head, and he turns around to see Rin standing behind him. But instead of welcoming him, Rin reminds Shin that she told him never to come back. She then throws another potato, telling him to get out of the village. The village chief, who is standing nearby, tells Rin not to talk to him like that, as what happened to Mary wasn't Shin's fault. Rin gets annoyed seeing that everyone is taking his side and ends up running away. After she leaves, the geezer chief apologizes to Shin on her behalf, but Shin replies by saying that her attitude is unwarranted. He then asks for some time alone and informs Mary that he has given up being a hero. This all reminds him of the time when he confessed his love to Mary, and she actually agreed to tie knots with this sad excuse of a hero. Shortly after that, a dragon attacked their village, and while Shin was away, Mary ended up losing her life while protecting the younger villagers. At that time, Rin blamed him for not coming sooner, as his presence would have saved Mary. After he's done at the grave, Shin decides to visit Rin, asking if he can talk to her. Following that, he informs Rin that he has given up being a hero and asks if there is any way to atone for his mistakes. To his surprise, she asks him to catch the golden snake, which reminds Shin that they are a rare breed of snake. Rin further reminds him that she asked him not to go that day because she had a bad feeling, but he didn't listen. Shin bows his head to apologize and gets told by Rin that he doesn't have to go out of his way to catch the snake, but in return, tells him never to come back to the village. After closing the door on him, Rin begins crying, asking Mary what she should do. At the same time, Haku appears and gets told by Shin that he wants to look for a golden snake in the mountains. Haku instantly agrees to go, as hearing the village chief's god-awful jokes has drained all his stamina. Later that day, they arrive at the forest, perfectly aware that they might need to spend a month if they aren't so lucky. Although Shin is aware that this won't make Rin forgive him, but for her sake, he still wants to find that golden snake. Shin then tells Haku that these snakes hardly show themselves in front of humans, which means they will need to search thoroughly. To start things off, he suggests splitting up, but before they do, Haku gives Shin a pair of gloves, saying that being barehanded is all sorts of inconvenient. Seeing that these gloves are pretty well made, he questions where Haku got these, to which Haku replies, informing him that he talked with the smith in Kalu village, but he refused to accept payment after hearing that it was for him. He further mentions how Shin is dearly loved by the people of that village, and Shin says that he's really thankful for that. With that being said, the first day of search begins, and Haku manages to find a snake called a tiger keelback. Shin warns Haku that they can attack if he agitates them, and just as Shin said, the snake ends up biting his nose. Shin further says that they are really poisonous, and before long, Haku falls onto the ground, complaining about how it hurts. Shin runs up to Haku to check him out, and while lying on the ground, Haku mentions how he's glad the two of them met. He then says his goodbyes and closes his eyes. Meanwhile, Shin looks at him for a while and then asks Haku to raise his hand if he sucks at acting, and to his shock, Haku does. He then gets back on his feet and apologizes after having a good laugh. Shin mentions how he's quite the prankster, to which he agrees, saying that he used to do such things with his family. Just like that, the day passes, and on the second day, Haku mentions how they don't seem to be getting anywhere and lets Shin know that he heard about Mary and Rin from the village chief. Furthermore, he tells Shin that it was not his fault, and after hearing this, he thanks Haku for saying that. Haku then comments on how he's getting hungry and runs off hunting. The following day, Haku questions what a golden snake looks like, and Shin replies that it looks like a viper with a skin that is deep gold. He then points towards a snake, saying that it looks similar to that. But after looking at it for a while, they realize that it's the golden snake they were searching for. Without wasting any time, the two of them start running after it. Haku tries catching it using his claws, but the snake easily dodges him, making Haku mention how it's swifter than expected. Shin then asks Haku to catch it alive if possible, and to ensure that Haku shoots his fur in the form of pointy needles. Luckily, this technique works, and he manages to pin the snake to the ground. Apparently, he can alter the hardness of these needles and can make them cause paralysis or sleep. Seeing that the snake is not moving, Shin figures that he used a sleeping needle this time. Haku then notices that the snake's eyes are still open and gets told by Shin that snakes don't have eyelids. Hearing this makes Haku a little disappointed, as he didn't know about this even after living for 300 years. With that, the two of them are on their way back, and Haku reassures Shin that Rin might even let him hit if she's happy about this, to which Shin replies by saying that this is his first and last atonement. Curious, Haku asks why Rin wants a golden snake in the first place, and Shin figures that she might want to sell it in order to make a large sum of money. Just then, Haku hears the footsteps of some monsters and asks Shin to get on. Before long, 3 beasts appear, and Haku easily manages to deal with them using his sharp fangs. With that out of their way, they run back to the village, only to find it in shambles. The village chief informs Shin that the village was attacked by bandits, and most of the guards were defeated by them. Shin then mentions that he doesn't see Rin and gets told by the chief that the women and the kids were taken away by them. Shin instantly decides to help them out and decides to borrow the sword of a guard. Furthermore, he asks Haku if he's willing to help out, to which he agrees. With that, they run towards the bandits and manage to catch up with them pretty soon. The bandits also end up stopping after realizing that they are being followed, and Shin notices the villagers, including Rin, present in the carriage. The bandit leader tells Shin that she has to shut Rin down, but she isn't dead yet. When he asks the reason they targeted the village, the leader informs him that they were ordered to gather some busty women, but refuses to tell him about the person who hired them. Following that, he orders his men to take care of the big dog, but Haku easily manages to tackle them, and when one of them tries stabbing him, the sword fails to pierce his tough fur. While Haku deals with the weaklings, Shin decides to take on the leader, who informs Shin that his power comes directly from a hero. He then begins attacking, but Shin easily manages to dodge all those attacks. Afterward, the two of them clash swords, and when Shin tries to attack him, the leader easily dodges the attack, making Shin realize that he can read his moves. As the battle continues, the leader tells Shin that his sword is a destructive type of magic item, and with a single strike, breaks Shin's sword into pieces. With that, he tries to end the fight by attacking Shin head-on, but to his surprise, Shin ends up disappearing and appears behind him from his shadows. However, the leader still manages to dodge the attack. Seeing this makes Shin figure that he can probably see the future and questions if his power is the power of the eye. Additionally, he figures that the power is most likely bestowed by the eye hero, which means his employer is a hero. Although it's the truth, the leader tries to disagree and tells Shin that he doesn't even have a sword to attack with. After hearing this, Shin uses the power of his darkness to summon a completely new blade and shoots an attack towards him. The leader mentions that it's no use as he can see through it, but little does he know that it won't change the result. Just as the attack goes past the bandit leader, it messes up his body and takes away his sense of sight. Knowing that it's over, the leader falls to the ground in despair and is told by Shin to submit. But instead, he decides to end his life so Shin couldn't get any answers from him. Simultaneously, Haku appears after finishing the lackeys, and with that, they go to save Rin and the others. Seeing that she is in a bad condition, Shin decides to use the last healing potion he's got. As soon as she drinks it, all Rin's injuries disappear, and she mentions how a medicine that expensive can buy 10 houses. Shin replies by saying that it's a pretty cheap trade, and hearing this brings tears to Rin's eyes, who questions the reason he's doing this after she said that cruel stuff. Shin lets her know that it's fine and lends her his jacket so she can hide her majestic melons from the others. As Shin walks away, Rin apologizes to him for the first time. Once they return to the village, the chief tries to give Shin a reward, but Shin refuses to take it. In order to lighten the mood, Shin cracks a dad joke, only to get some serious stares in return due to how bad it was. Nonetheless, Shin reassures him that all the bandits are dead, and he'll come back if something is off. The villagers thank him once again, and with that being said, Shin decides to leave. Once they walk out of the village, both Haku and Shin inform each other that they have something to say, but get interrupted by Rin, who comes running after him. She then tells Shin that she knew everything from the start about how Mary was the one who asked him to go, but Shin argues that it still doesn't absolve his sins. Rin replies by saying that he doesn't carry any sins, and what happened that day wasn't his fault. Additionally, she admits her fault for being childish and blaming him, as she wasn't able to blame anyone else. Lastly, Rin tells him to live for his own sake and think about how many people he has saved. Furthermore, she asks him to keep living even if it gets painful and hands him the golden snake he got for her. Apparently, if they are soaked in alcohol, it becomes pretty yummy, and Rin wants him to drink it on his way back. With that, she gives him one last hug before they part ways. After she leaves, Haku remembers a story about the golden snake, which involves a man who wanted to die, but after drinking the snake's alcohol that his wife made, he became cheerful and forgot about wanting to die. This makes Shin realize that Rin saw through him, and he asks Haku if they should postpone their plan of dying together. Surprisingly, Haku wants the same as he has decided to enjoy life a little longer. Elsewhere, the Eye Hero sees Shin thanks to his ability and realizes that his plan failed, finding it hard to believe how strong the former hero who lost his power really is. Meanwhile, Haku and Shin arrive at the city of iron walls called Algun, and Shin informs Haku that it has been the birthplace and hometown of the mystic Eye Hero since ancient times. He further mentions that there are several ways to become a hero, and Haku questions if beating a current hero is one of them. Shin agrees and further adds that another way is to be acknowledged by a hero and receive the hero ring from them. While Shin has never met the Eye Hero, he is aware that they are able to see through actions and plots. Just as they are about to enter the town, the guards end up stopping them, and soon after, a number of them appear. Shin tries to explain to them that Haku is his companion and won't hurt anyone. One of the guards asks Shin to prove it, and Shin asks Haku to sit, and to their surprise, he complies. Additionally, Haku tries communicating with them as well, making the guards realize that he's pretty smart. However, they are still confused regarding the size of Haku, which forces him to explain that he's a variant. Eventually, the guards agree to believe Shin but tell him to prove it with some sort of skill that Haku is a magic fox. Without any further ado, Haku prepares himself and lets out a loud roar that is heard far and wide. He then explains that his roar has the effect of frightening targets, but gets told by Shin that he's the only one listening to his explanation, as all the others except for him have passed out. Nonetheless, the two of them end up going inside, and Shin decides to register themselves as adventurers at the guild. As they continue walking forward, Haku notices that the people of the town are scared of him, and in order to fix it, he asks Shin to get on his back. Shin complies as he figures that might not scare the townsfolk as much. With that, they appear at the Adventurers Guild, where the two of them continue to stand out despite them wishing not to. Shin then lets the receptionist know that he wants to register at the guild. She starts off by explaining that their guild has ranks from E to SS, and if one continues to fail jobs, they can get demoted as well. Some guilds register people without any questions, while some require tests, and once they are acknowledged, an identity card is given to them. She then asks if Shin is a beast tamer, but he disagrees, which makes the receptionist wonder who that overgrown husky next to him is. Shin informs her that they've got some history together and reassures the receptionist that Haku is not dangerous at all. Afterward, she asks him about his fighting style and gets told by Shin that he specializes in sword and magic, but can also use lots of lower-tier spells. However, his main proficiency is dark magic. The receptionist gets excited as soon as she hears the word dark magic and mentions that he's exactly like the hero of darkness. Haku also begins fanboying the hero of darkness with the receptionist, who is unaware that the real hero of darkness is standing in front of her. Ultimately, she informs him about the test, saying that there is a long-term test where he needs to take a job every day for 3 months, and the other is a short test that takes around half a day. He has the choice to pick either one, and when Shin asks her about the short test, she mentions that he can only be told if he accepts it. After hearing this, Shin figures that the short test must be hard, but ends up accepting it anyway. Seeing that Shin chose the short test, the adventurers at the guild call it the Fox Hunt. The receptionist then explains that within the next 12 hours, he needs to collect hats from all the other adventurers present, and if he does, he passes the test. But if he fails to do so or his hat gets taken away, he fails. Additionally, he can use any means he wants, but at the same time, the other adventurers are allowed to attack him as well. Following that, Shin is given 10 seconds to run away, but instead, he decides to stay there, as letting them spread around would be a bother. One of the adventurers questions Shin if he really thinks that many people can't take his hat and advises him to stop underestimating them. With that, the test officially commences, and Shin instantly uses one of his dark magic spells to blind everyone present at the guild. Unluckily, the receptionist ends up getting consumed by darkness as well, and while trying to find her way, accidentally bumps into someone. That turns out to be Shin, who makes sure to apologize for getting her caught up in all this. Just then, the effect of darkness disappears, and the receptionist finds herself in quite a bent-over position. She instantly panics and gets away from Shin, asking if that spell was his doing. Shin agrees, and simultaneously, Haku appears with all the hats he managed to gather. While the two of them celebrate gathering all the hats, the adventurers seem visibly frustrated as they weren't able to do anything in that darkness. With that out of the way, they leave the guild, and Shin mentions that the spell he used can normally cover an entire city, but it seems his mana has been considerably weakened. Furthermore, Shin suggests looking for an inn to stay the night, and when Haku mentions that they might not allow him to enter, Shin replies by saying that there's a place that lets tamed beasts enter. Just then, Haku notices something and starts looking around. Shin asks if he thinks they are being watched, to which Haku agrees, saying that it's been happening ever since they entered the city. Shin also adds that he felt like he had been watched for the last 2 years, which was the same time when the Eye Hero was replaced. Nonetheless, Haku decides to gather some information, and when Shin asks if he'll be okay on his own, Haku agrees and runs away. In the meantime, Shin enters an inn and witnesses the owner getting harassed by some chopped dudes. They then try to scare the owner by saying that they are the disciples of the Hero of Darkness, which ends up scaring everyone present. Unsure, the owner asks if they have any proof or if they are just misusing the name of the hero. Hearing this makes one of those guys mad, but instead of getting scared, the owner tells them to stop acting like thugs if they are disciples of such a hero. Eventually, they end up showcasing their dark magic and use it on one of the people present to drain all the mana present inside of him. Shin, who is nearby, instantly intervenes and stops them from hurting that person even further. They then ask the owner if he finally acknowledges them as the hero's disciples, and having no other choice, he ends up agreeing to their demand of not wanting to pay for their stay. However, Shin's anger increases after seeing the owner's daughter crying, and he tells those guys to use the same spell on him. When they ask if he also wants to end up like that guy, Shin once again tells them to use that spell on him. This time, both those guys try to drain his mana together, but to their shock, Shin grabs their hands and starts doing the opposite. Instead of taking mana away, he starts giving them more mana than the amount they can tolerate, causing both of them to fall to the ground as their mana has already reached critical volume. Both of them start to complain about how their head hurts, and Shin decides to leave them be, saying that it might stay like that for half a day. When they promise to pay for their stay, Shin lets them know that not only will they be paying, but also cleaning the floor and apologizing to everyone. Following that, he helps the person who was hurt as well, and at the same time the owner's daughter appears to thank Shin for the help. Soon after, Haku also returns, and when Shin asks the owner if both he and Haku can stay, he agrees and even decides to give them 30% off. Once they are in their room, Haku informs Shin that the Eye Hero has been gathering information on him, and to be precise, more than a few heroes have. Shin figures that he will deal with them if they try to make a move, which makes Haku ask if they should prioritize finding his lost power. While Shin has an idea for that, he suggests focusing on doing jobs for the guild. The next morning, Shin completes his job and returns with everything that was requested. The receptionist compliments them for completing so many jobs in one day and introduces herself as Lily. She further mentions that Shin reminds her of the hero of darkness that she admires, and when Shin argues that he's not a hero, Lily replies, saying that he not only didn't hurt anyone during the test, but also saved her when she was in trouble, so to her, he is nothing less than a hero. Shin gets embarrassed hearing this and notices that Haku is not even present beside him anymore. Turns out, Haku decided to run away and not disturb Shin from finally scoring a thick baddie. Sometime later, Haku comes across a tri-snake, but with a single attack spell named Extreme Electric Dash, he electrocutes it and instantly brings it down. After that, he grabs it with his mouth and drags it towards the town. Haku then comes up to Shin, asking him to come outside for a minute, and as soon as Shin exits the inn, he notices the tri-snake corpse lying right outside. Lily is present there as well and tells one of the guild workers to call the guild master. But before he gets the chance, the guild master arrives on her own and introduces herself as Lone. Furthermore, she immediately walks up to Shin and attempts to riz this bad boy up by letting him know that he's her type. Lily instantly gets between them, telling Lone not to do anything further. Nonetheless, Lone calls Shin to her room, where she informs him that a B-rank party was saved from this tri-snake, and according to them, a magic fox saved them. She then figures that it must be Haku who saved them, and while she can't pay the price, as Shin didn't accept the job, she wishes to reward him by buying the tri-snake corpse from him for 800. Haku gets shocked hearing the price and gets told by Lone that it's a variant monster whose body fluids and fangs are used for making tools. While Shin begins to wonder if making strong weapons would be better than selling it, Lone decides to crank up the price to 1,000 since Haku also saved the B-rank party and raises their ranks to see later that day. The two of them enjoy eating a feast from the money they earned, and when Shin praises Haku, he replies by saying that he's a proud beast who earns his own keep. Shin figures that he only fought that thing to save that party, not knowing that Haku didn't even know that there was a party there. He then asks if they are going to the guild, to which Shin replies that he's confused between buying weapons or searching for a stone. When Haku questions if he wants to search for the mana poaching stone, Shin agrees, telling him that there are some spells he'd like to use, which he can't due to having less mana. There's also a mana stone nearby, but he doesn't know how he can fight for it barehanded. While the smiths in this city have good weapons, Shin isn't sure if they can be compared to his previous sword. Nonetheless, Haku suggests checking out the Lifestyle Guild, which is for people with special talents to earn money. With that, they enter the guild, where they are greeted by the receptionist. He informs them that there are two kinds of jobs. One is individual requests, and the second is mostly odd jobs. While they can earn money for completing them, exchanging points for ingredients is also a choice. This makes Shin hopeful that he might be able to get a high-level magic tool and decides to register himself. The receptionist then introduces himself as Sabrin, and when asked to see the exchange items list, Sabrin hands it to him. While Shin gets excited after seeing the Dark Knight sword, Haku is more than happy to see the phantom boar meat that is for sale. Judging by their reaction, Sabrin figures that they found what they like, and figures that Shin must not be an ordinary man to tame a monster like that. Since the items they like are pretty expensive, Sabrin decides to give them a job called the Magic Tool Plunderer Incident, and as the difficulty is high, so is the reward. Without thinking much about it, Shin instantly accepts the job and is taken to a magic tool warehouse from where there's a delivery scheduled to go out today. Shin notices that this place is more secure than a virgin's browser history, to which Sabrin agrees, saying that this is the reason thieves aim to steal when they take down the defenses for transport. No matter how strong the escorts are, they always end up losing, and from their style, Sabrin believes that it's the doing of Death's Chain, which is a criminal group. Curious, Shin asks if attacks happen only at night, and when Sabrin agrees, Shin realizes that they use dark magic and do it without leaving a trace. Just then an idea pops into his head, and he asks Sabrin to get some escorts ready for departure. Furthermore, he questions Haku if they are being watched right now, and when Haku disagrees, Shin walks up to a specific location and sets up a trap using dark magic. Once it's nighttime, the wagons are ready for delivery, when suddenly, a thief appears behind one of the escorts. But just as he is about to attack him, the escort disappears into the darkness, confusing that thief. Simultaneously, Sabrin notices his presence, and knowing that he can't be seen by others, he dashes towards Sabrin to end his life. However, Shin intervenes and lands a kick right to his face, followed by several punches. Lastly, Shin puts all his strength into the last punch, but the thief manages to escape using darkness, and after appearing behind Shin, counterattacks using Dark Hand. But instead of attacking back, Shin begins to run away, and the thief quickly realizes that Shin is running around, waiting for him to exhaust his mana. Annoyed, that thief takes out a mana-amplifying pill, and as soon as he eats it, the dark hands he was using get stronger. This allows him to get a hold of Shin, and with that, he manages to pierce Shin's body easily. Thinking that it's over, the thief takes a sigh of relief, only to witness Shin's body disappearing the next second. He then looks behind, only to see several clones of Shin standing. The real Shin lets him know that his inhumane use of dark magic can't be overlooked, and in order to tackle this situation, the thief ends up eating more of those pills. With this, he gains an extreme level of power and starts destroying all the clones. However, as he continues using more and more power, his body gives up at one point, and blood starts flowing from every hole in his body. The dark hands disappear, and the thief falls to the ground. This fight makes him realize that Shin is the real dark magic user. Shin then questions how he knew the transportation schedule, to which the thief replies that there's a spell that allows him to get a grasp of an area. Shin mentions that he's not high-level enough to know such a spell and questions if he's a member of Death's Chains. This means he must have connections with someone who does recon, someone with outstanding magic talent, and according to Shin, that someone is the Mystic Eye hero. But before the thief gets the chance to reply, he books a one-way ticket to hell. Shin then notices a mana-poaching stone lying next to his corpse. Later that night, he, along with Haku, walks away from the town and stands in front of a mountain-like structure. There, Shin breaks the mana-poaching stone and gains a portion of his power back. In order to test things out, Shin attacks that mountain and breaks it into pieces. He's glad to be able to have his wind magic back, and the new sword he received from the guild also feels good. Now that the job done, Haku mentions that the only thing remaining is dealing with the Eye hero. Using their mana search spell, they run towards the Colosseum where Shin has sensed the presence of 5 people. As soon as they enter the Colosseum, Shin sees a strong torrent of mana in the center. Haku also believes that they are choosing to fight them head-on since no one is hiding in the shadows. The Eye hero lets Shin know that they have been waiting for him, to which Shin replies, saying that he must have been watching him with that eye for some time. The Eye hero mentions that since Shin is the strongest among heroes, he's quite a threat. Shin then questions if the 4 people behind him are members of the Death's Chain, to which he agrees and introduces himself as the Eye hero named Randil. Nonetheless, Shin tells Randil about Kalu village, which was attacked by bandits, which he found too convenient to be a coincidence. This made him figure that it was Randil who informed the bandits about his absence and told them to attack the village. Randil agrees without any hesitation, saying that he gave those bandits info in exchange for a magic tool. He further asks Shin if protecting the world is really worth betting his life on, as ever since his eyesight awakened, he has been able to see the whole world, and as a result, confirmed that it's a rotten place. The other heroes also abuse their powers, while Shin is the only one who is serious about saving the world. In reply, Shin takes out his sword and tells Randil that he'd rather die than ask help from Death's Chain. Randil then informs him that the power Shin used to steal the senses won't work on him, as his eye is not a mere imitation. Thanks to his sight, Randil has already seen the future where he started making his move, and now that he has investigated his fighting style, there is no chance that he can win. Instead of fighting each other, Randil advises Shin to join him, as it's the only way for him to survive. Shin replies by saying that his answer won't change, and with that, the Death's Chain members prepare to fight. They then start casting a spell and end up transforming into giant dragons. Riding one of those dragons, Randil tells Shin that he will be sending him to his grave. Following that, the dragon starts attacking Shin with several electric cannonballs, but Shin manages to dodge thanks to Haku's quick reflexes. The other dragon then begins attacking them with flames, but Haku easily emerges from that attack unharmed as he transforms into his red fox form, which is resistant to flames. Shin thanks Haku, as now he doesn't have to worry about flame attacks, and informs him that humans morphed into dragons lose all their senses and move according to their caster's command. This means that if they get rid of the Death Chain members in control of those dragons, the dragon can be defeated as well. With that, they decide to first target the fire dragon, but Randil already sees the future and orders the mages to deploy a barrier. Simultaneously, Shin tries to attack it with his wind magic, but it gets blocked due to that barrier. However, he seems to have another idea and jumps off Haku to teleport himself behind a pillar. But just when he is about to do a sneak attack, Shin notices that the dragon is already in the midst of attacking him. As Randil's eyesight can see 10 seconds into the future, he knows where Shin will teleport. Afterward, he orders the dragon to remove the barrier and attack Haku with flames. Shin finds it strange that Randil already knows that Haku is resistant to flames. Just then, he realizes something and appears in front of Haku, managing to block the ice attack just in the nick of time. Apparently, Randil used the flames to cover the ice attack, and since Haku is a red fox right now, he's weak to ice attacks. Seeing that he managed to block it, Randil is impressed but believes that Shin can't keep running forever. Shin then asks Haku to get out of the area for a moment, and in order to prioritize invasion, he transforms into his green fox form that can run faster and jump higher. Due to the continuous flame attack, a smoke screen appears in the Colosseum, but thanks to Randil's sight, it won't keep Shin hidden from him. Just then an attack flies by Randil, barely missing his face, and in a state of panic he asks the dragon to deploy his barrier. But to his surprise, several attacks start coming his way, all thanks to the multiple clones Shin has created of himself. Haku suggests mixing themselves in with the clones to find an opening, but Shin disagrees, saying that this is just a diversion as he already has a plan in mind. Getting attacked from several positions at once makes it harder for the dragons to block, and having no other choice, Randil orders it to descend in order to get a proper view. Once he sees the clones, the dragon attacks them with its Pikachu-inspired attack, and as a result, wipes out all of them. Now that Shin's the only one remaining, Randil mentions that it's over, only to see him sitting on Haku confidently with a magic ball in hand. Shin lets him know that he was waiting for the moment he destroyed his clones, as before those clones were destroyed, he had them absorb mana into a dark gem. When those clones disappeared, he gathered the dark gems that were filled with the dragon's attack. Since Shin's power isn't completely back, he was not confident whether he could control this attack, but Randil is an opponent worthy of using it on. With that, he charges the fire dragon, and after converting the dark gem into an arrow, shoots it. The arrows he shot pierce through the barrier, hitting the dragon along with the other Death's Chain members controlling it. Now that one dragon is dealt with, Shin begins targeting the dragon Randil is on, and just like before, the arrows easily manage to pierce its body as well. The dragon then falls to the ground along with Randil, and before he even gets a chance to do something else, Haku comes running towards him, followed by Shin attacking him with his sword. Shin then pins him down to the ground and lets Randil know that it's now a fight between the two of them. Somehow, Randil attacks back and manages to get away, telling Shin that his moves will always be one step behind thanks to the eyesight skill. However, before he could even predict the next move, Shin targets his eyes and cuts them with ease. Now that Randil's eyes have been taken care of, Shin figures that he has lost his sight. Furious, Randil questions the reason his foresight did not foresee his movements and gets told by Shin that he moved before foresight could activate. Randil was so focused on his foresight that he lost sight of his present movements. Shin then mentions that while Randil stayed in the city, pounding more baddies than monsters, Shin fought while risking his life. His sword skills reflect how he lives his everyday life, and that gap is something that cannot be crossed with foresight. Randil lets Shin know that he won't give up on being a hero, not after getting his hands on this status, but Shin doesn't seem to have a problem with it, as he only wanted to take his eyes away. With that being said, Shin walks away and gets asked by Haku if leaving him instead of turning him over to the guards is the right choice. Shin mentions that they will get in trouble for doing something like that, as Randil has far greater trust from his citizens. Now he can no longer borrow strength from the Death's Chain, and since his eyes are gone, Randil won't be staying a hero for long either. Following that, Shin tells Haku that he has decided to see this world through to the end, even if he can't change it. For now, he decides to gather all the mana stones that have been scattered around the world, and once he has them, Shin will try to make the world as good as he can. Haku finds it wonderful, and when Shin asks if he will be coming along, Haku agrees, saying that they'll be stuck together for a while. Back at the guild, Shin informs Lily that they will be going to the next town and asks if the rank will be transferred. While she agrees about the ranks getting transferred, Lily can't believe he is leaving today. Just then, Lone appears and reveals that Lily was planning on confessing her love today. Annoyed, she tells Lone not to say it out loud, and when asked if she wants to tell Shin about his feelings, she refuses. Lily further mentions that she believes Shin will be as renowned as the hero of darkness someday, and hands him some cookies she made. Shin also promises to swing by the next time they visit Algun and leave. Just then, they notice a person telling a crowd of people that he will not become a hero who hides but one who uses his sight skill to make their lives happier. Haku wonders if that's the Ring of Eye hero in his finger, to which Shin agrees and says that since heroes can't turn down duels, it's common for them to be targeted when they are sick or depressed. He already knew that slicing Randill's eyes would lead to him losing the hero ring. Just like how Randill was observing them, it is likely the case that he was getting observed by someone else as well. Hearing this makes Haku comment on how it looks like Shin has foresight as well, to which Shin replies that if the future were to take all his attention and he loses sight of what's important now, then he doesn't want such power. Following that, the two of them appear in the capital city of Latra, where Shin is busy fighting King Kong from Temu. To everyone's surprise, he easily manages to slam that gorilla onto the ground and is deemed the victor of their battle. Thanks to that, Shin receives 30 potions as a reward, which is pretty useful as neither he nor Haku can use healing magic. With that, Shin decides to leave as Haku is waiting for him, and as he walks away, the people gathered discuss how they have never seen this gorilla lose before. Afterward, Haku, along with Shin, enjoys eating some seafood at the local restaurant, and the fact that it's so delicious is due to the fresh fish found in the rivers and lakes. Soon after, a waiter arrives, asking if they like the food, to which Shin agrees, saying that not only is the food great, but the people are pretty well-mannered as well. The waiter agrees and tells Shin that it's a place where humans and beast folks get along, but lately, there has been some racial tension. Furthermore, the waiter advises him not to go outside at night, as there have been a lot of violent attacks lately. Back at the inn, Haku informs Shin that he also saw some dents in the road and buildings around town, and since everything else seemed peaceful, it was strange to him. This reminds Shin that he also saw that, and although it's illegal to use magic in a city, those dents look like they were done by powerful magic. While brushing Haku's fluffy fur, Shin notices that he has already fallen asleep and decides to investigate a little, as he's concerned about the city. With that, he uses Dark Crawl to teleport himself in the middle of the street. To his surprise, the street is covered by something like miasma, and no one seems to be present around. Just then, the guards call out Shin and advise him not to walk alone at night, as there have been a lot of ogre attacks lately. Curious, Shin asks those underpaid guards to waste more of their time explaining the details. Suddenly, they all heard a scream and noticed a girl asking for help. Additionally, a giant ogre seems to be standing in front of her, and just as he is about to attack that girl, Shin appears and blocks the attack using his sword. While he holds down the ogre, Shin tells the guards to take the girl to a safe place. He then wonders if the monster is a variant, as he's never seen an ogre of this color. Nonetheless, Shin then pushes the ogre away and manages to slash its chest with his sword. But to his shock, the wound ends up healing instantly, and the ogre starts to act pretty strangely as well. This makes Shin realize that this ogre doesn't seem to have any intelligence and is someone moving like it's not self-aware. Following that, the ogre attacks Shin with a flame attack, which he manages to dodge. Knowing that the horns are a weak spot for ogres, he instantly cuts them off, causing the ogre to scream in pain and fall to the ground. Additionally, the ogre tries saying the name Karina, but Shin doesn't seem to care as it's his chance to finish it off. But before he gets the chance to swing his sword, the girl from before tells Shin to stop, asking him not to eliminate it. While Shin is caught by surprise, the ogre uses this chance to run away. Nonetheless, Shin questions the girl about what she means, and the girl replies by informing Shin that her name is Karina and that ogre is her lover. The guards also inform him that these attacks are from beast folks morphing into ogres. While Shin is aware that the demons have been doing human experiments, he has never heard of anything specific to beast folks or something that could affect a whole city. Shin then asks if there's a way to turn them back, but while their king is working on it, there is currently no way. Although eliminating them turns the ogres back into beast folks, it takes away their lives, and the goddess that lives nearby has also given up on this matter. Following that, one of the guards praises Shin's swordsmanship and asks him to join the extermination squad that the king will be setting up. The next day, Shin informs Haku about everything, which reminds him of an incident that turned villagers into monsters 200 years ago. Shin further informs him that he tried to do a mana search yesterday and found a huge mana source that was leaving the city. According to him, demons might be involved in the incident, and to deal with this, he quickly needs to retrieve his mana poaching stones. Eventually, they arrive at a place where he senses one of the stones and notices a couple of people gathered near a spring. One of the girls present informs Shin that the goddess is coming to listen to their woes. This reminds Shin that he heard something similar yesterday from the guards as well. Soon after, the clouds cleared, followed by the appearance of that so-called goddess. Everyone instantly bows down in front of her, and she questions Shin if it's his first time. She tells him not to be so stiff, as she doesn't like excessive formality. Shin tries thanking her but pauses after noticing those purely divine jugs she's rocking. Afterward, the goddess introduces herself as Athena and tells Shin that she wants to speak with him and Haku after this session. Haku then teases Shin for focusing a little too much on the jiggle physics, but Shin disagrees and says that he can sense one of his mana stones from her. Soon after, Athena comes up to them and informs Shin that she is merely a variant pixie and pretends to be a god. Shin then decides to get straight to the point and asks if she has the mana poaching stone. Athena then shoves her hands in the Valley of No Return and takes out the mana poaching stone. Shin informs her that this belongs to him and asks her to return it. While Athena doesn't mind giving it back to him, she wants Shin to listen to a request of hers. When Shin agrees, Athena asks Shin to bring her friend, the water hero, here, as it's an urgent matter. With that, the two of them arrive at the village where the water hero resides, and Haku mentions that Athena told them that they could notice her right away due to her aqua hair. Shin adds the fact that her activity range is pretty broad as well, making Haku wonder if he already knows her. Turns out the two of them were in the same party for a while, and before Shin gets the chance to finish the explanation, they notice people getting attacked by a giant eagle. Luckily, Shin steps in just in time and uses his darkness shield to protect them. He then tells Haku to attack, but just then, someone tells them not to attack and uses water magic on the eagle, which calms it down. That person turns out to be the water hero, who then explains to everyone that the bird isn't a monster and can be calmed down. Furthermore, she decides to thank the two of them for protecting the villagers. But just as he notices Shin's face, tears start flowing from her eyes as she's glad to see him alive. After that, she instantly runs and gives Shin a big hug, letting him know that she missed him. Shin hugs her back and apologizes for worrying her, telling the water hero that a lot happened after he retired from being the dark hero. She replies by saying that there's no way he could have died when suddenly, their eyes meet, and the fact that they are so close to each other enters their minds. Instantly, the two of them get away from each other, causing Haku to tease them for being bedroom partners rather than just acquaintances. Shin then introduces him as Haku and informs her that they have been traveling together for some time. She is impressed to hear that this strong, fluffy monster is his partner and introduces herself as Arya. With greetings out of the way, Shin informs Arya that Athena urgently needs her and asks Arya to come meet her with them. Arya instantly agrees as Athena is a friend of hers, and with that, Shin asks her to get on Haku. Simultaneously, a mischievous thought enters Haku's mind, and he asks Arya to hold Shin tightly as his back is unstable. Without thinking much, she complies and squeezes her lady bits against Shin's back. However, Shin is a bit confused about why she needs to hold him, as it's pretty stable, annoying Haku, who realizes that his efforts just went over his head. Before long, they arrive at the lake, where Arya and Athena happily greet each other. Shin informs Haku that Arya was still pretty young the last time he saw him, so he's surprised to see her all grown up. Meanwhile, Athena tells Arya about her urgent business, which is about the beast folks transforming into ogres. She then asks her about the ailment-healing magic Arya uses and asks if she can undo ogrification. Arya figures that she must be talking about holy pure water and informs them that if it hasn't been long since they became ogres, it might work. Since Athena feels bad for all the people who came to ask for her help, she wishes to help and asks Arya to assist them. Luckily, Arya agrees as being a hero, she can't just leave them be. Athena gets excited hearing this and calls Arya the spitting image of a hero. But after looking at Shin, Arya mentions that she's only imitating one and learned from Shin what being a hero is like. Apparently, when Arya was younger, she trained to become a hero under her master. The Baelinch kingdom that the water hero serves and the Orst kingdom that the darkness hero serves had been at war. However, that war ended when the darkness hero was replaced, as his very existence caused the utter defeat of Balnesh. So in Arya's country, Shin was painted as a vile hero who couldn't be defeated by anyone. On the day when the two countries were going to announce their ceasefire, a resistance group came to eliminate the king and summoned a beast to attack. Although Arya tried her best to defeat the beast and protect the citizens, there was no way her delicate self could have defeated it. Once cornered, she couldn't do anything but ask for help when suddenly, Shin appeared, and before she knew it, the beast was defeated. Shin then came to Arya and after letting her know that it was all over, told her that he could go back to her mother. From that day onward, she started admiring him and trained desperately to catch up with Shin. There were several times she met Shin and fought alongside him, but he always treated her like a little brat, which was to be expected, as Shin already had a baddie he was enjoying clapping. Then one day, his lover was eliminated, and even though Arya wanted to mourn her death, she wasn't allowed to because of the differences between their nations. 5 years later, she heard the news about Shin's demise. Currently, nothing makes her happier than the fact that she has reunited with Shin and is of use to him. After hearing this story, both Athena and Haku realize that she has been in love with Shin ever since. However, the man in question is still as thick-headed as ever. With that, Athena returns the mana poaching stone she had, and as soon as Shin breaks it, he realizes that more of his mana has returned than before. Nonetheless, he realizes that it's almost night and decides to head back to town. Back on that street, Haku smells something that resembles a zombie, and Shin figures that the culprit might be using a modified zombie powder. Arya questions if it's really possible to cover this large area, and Shin lets her know that they are using wind magic to spread it. While he wants to catch the culprit, they also need to prioritize the ogres, as Shin is hoping that the holy pure water works on them. To start things off, Shin decides to use his mana detection to search for yesterday's ogre, and once he's found it, they head in that direction. Arya wonders what the objectives of those demons are, and Shin lets her know that it's probably to create discord between humans and beast folks. Before long, they manage to reach the place where that ogre is present, and after noticing the severed horns, Shin realizes that it's the same one. Arya mentions that it's eating raw flesh and asks if they can still undo the ogrification. Shin agrees and gets ready to fight it. Before they begin, Arya asks him to stop his movements as she's got a plan. Shin agrees, and after asking Haku to protect her, he decides to become the bait. With that, he creates several clones of himself and charges the ogre. Just like before, it fires the flame attack to deal with the clones, but each one of them creates a shield to protect themselves. During the fight, Shin notices that his intelligence has dropped a lot, but he is hopeful that they can still turn him back. Once Arya is ready with the holy water, they ask Shin to step back and use a spell named Ice Flower Formation to freeze the ogre and restrict its movement. Haku then grabs one of its arms while Shin grabs the other one using his darkness spell. Now that everything's in place, Arya jumps towards the ogre and lands a brutal kick on its stomach. This causes the ogre to open his mouth, allowing Arya to pour the holy water inside his mouth. As soon as he drinks it, the ogre begins to scream and slowly begins to transform, eventually returning to his beast folk form. Seeing him confused, Haku informs him that he was affected by miasma and morphed into an ogre. Back in town, the beast folk reunite with Karina while Shin asks the guards to inform him about others, as they might be able to help them out. Meanwhile, Arya is glad to see Karina with her lover and mentions how jealous she is. Haku replies by saying that he feels the same way as he's been alone for quite a while. Arya lets him know that he's got Shin now, and she likes him a lot as well. Hearing this makes Haku overwhelmed with joy, and he thanks Arya for saying those kind words. After Shin returns, he tells Arya that he will be getting her a separate room, but Arya mentions that she is okay with sharing one as the two of them have known each other for a long time. Shin agrees and pats her head, telling Arya that she was the star player today. The next day, Arya informs the two of them that she went outside without hiding her face, but no one recognized her. Shin informs her that there are a lot of heroes and not everyone is known. Haku then talks about the weapon hero being from this city, but he is currently away. Shin lets him know that it's a hero's job to go on diplomatic trips as they have the authority to speak on behalf of their countries. The fact that's strange to Shin is that the country is in peril, but the hero is still gone. Just then, a guard appears and informs Shin that the king summons him regarding the ogrification incident. With that being said, the three of them head to the castle and stand in front of the king. They all instantly bow to show respect, but get told by the king to be at ease as he's the one who summoned them. First of all, the king compliments Shin for taking care of this issue and then asks about where he got that holy water from. Shin informs him that it was made by Arya, who is the water hero and his comrade. The king is shocked to hear that the water hero is in his country and gets informed by Arya that her comrade was in trouble, so she came to help him out. Furthermore, the king notices the beast he has tamed and asks just who in the world he is. Shin informs the king by saying that he is just a simple traveler when, suddenly, he feels a forceful glare and realizes that it's coming from a person standing by the king. Apparently, he was subtle enough to only intimidate him, which makes Shin curious about who he is. The king then gets up from his seat and asks Shin to take part in the operation to exterminate miasma and possibly some demons or beasts. Shin mentions that it has been some time since the ogrification started and asks the king if his forces are ready. The king lets him know that his troops have already found the source, and the hero who was away has returned as well. He then introduces the hero of the weapon, called Clail, who tells both Shin and Arya that it's an honor to meet them. Furthermore, he purposefully teases Haku by calling him a wolf. Shin then questions Clail about the group of people behind him and gets told that they are his party. Currently, there are a few presents, but in total, he has around 30 party members. The king once again asks Shin if he will lend them a hand, as there is a rift forming between humans and the beast folks. Shin lets him know that he was planning on moving out on his own anyway and agrees to join the operation. With that being said, the king informs everyone that the extermination team will include Clail and his party, Shin's party, and 30 of the king's elite soldiers. One of those soldiers introduces himself and tries to shake Shin's hand. Instantly, Shin notices that he's trying to test him by squeezing his hand, and in order to display a bit of his strength, Shin squeezes his hand back. That guard fails to handle Shin's monstrous grip and falls to the ground. In the end, he requests that Shin let go of his hand, to which Shin agrees. Seeing this, Clail questions the guard about whether Shin is strong, to which he agrees, calling him inhumanly strong. Clail then asks the king to make his soldiers the vanguard as he'd like himself, and Shin to take care of the enemies. Following that, Clail asks Shin to come with him for a moment as he'd like to try out a new magic tool he got. With that, they all head to open ground where a couple of winged goblins are present in a cage. Soon after, those monsters are released, and without wasting any time, they start flying towards Clail. However, Clail shoots 4 arrows towards them at once, and while they manage to dodge them the first time, the arrows change their direction and hit the goblins from behind, hence eliminating them. After that, Clail asks Shin to take care of the last one, which makes Shin realize that this hero is quite a schemer. Clail doesn't just want to test his abilities, but wants him to use it when the sun is out and his darkness is at its weakest. Nonetheless, Shin agrees to humor him, and just as the last goblin is about to attack him, Shin uses his dark hand to grab the goblin from behind and behead him with ease. Seeing this makes Clail mention how strong Shin is at this time of the day and says that he's sure Shin might reach the level of the darkness hero. Later that night, everyone is ready for their mission, and before they leave, Clail reminds everyone that this is a fight to regain peace in Latra. On their way to the destination, Clail talks to Arya, saying that he never thought he'd be fighting alongside another country's hero. Furthermore, he compliments Arya by calling her beautiful and invites her to join his party. However, Arya instantly bro-zones him, saying that she has already set her heart on someone. She further mentions that he is someone with black hair and conviction, who uses his strength for someone he believes is right. Meanwhile, the people who come with a crowd and use underhanded tests aren't really her type. Before Arya gets the chance to say any further, both Haku and Shin manage to stop her. Just then, one of the soldiers informs Clail that there are purple ogres present. Judging by their color, Clail figures that they are former beast folks, and luckily, they seem to have holy water with them. With that, he orders everyone to take position, and before long they find themselves standing in front of 9 purple ogres. Clail is shocked to see this many of them at once, and while they have enough holy water, it'll be hard to treat them all. Having no other choice, Clail suggests exterminating them. Soon after, the ogres start to attack, and due to their sheer size, the formation of the team starts to break. Luckily, Haku comes in clutch, and after using his green fox form, pushes the ogres away with wind magic. Clail tells everyone to use this chance and get back into formation. Furthermore, he praises Haku for being so powerful and gets told by Shin that he has one more attribute, and between his, Arya's, and Haku's powers, they won't lose to the ogres. This is why he wants to have all those ogres drink the holy water. While Clail understands his feelings, he tells Shin that trying to get these many ogres under control is far too risky. Nonetheless, Shin mentions that he wants to bet on it if there's a chance, and Arya agrees with him as well. In the end, Clail decides to go along with their plan for 5 minutes, and if they don't succeed within that time, they will eliminate the ogres. With that being said, Arya prepares to freeze them like last time, while Shin decides to use Dark Hand and asks Haku to make sure they don't come nearby. Do you think they will be able to purify those 9 ogres? Comment Darkness if you'd like a part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in and we'll catch you in the next one.